Hello, friends. Welcome to post-test live stream. The intent of this is to just go over some civil service stuff for you guys so that you know what to expect. It's going to be a quick one today, but please feel free to ask any questions you have in the chat. Moderator Sarah is over there watching and checking what's going on. Oh, let me start the captions. Come on. All right. Captioning should be going. There we go. So yeah, congratulations on making it through the test, and welcome to what to expect next. Let me go to my slides. So what I'm going to go over today is what to expect after the exam, kind of what score notices look like once you get those, how eligible lists work, how the rule of three works, selective certification, and then if there's anything else that comes up next. So again, feel free to ask questions in the chat if you have any. The timelines I have are from 2010, 2014, and 2017 exams. So you can see in 2010, the test was given in June. The list was established in December, so it took about 6 months. In 2014, I believe that was the first time they used the Selective Certification Skills Inventory questionnaire. The test was given in December. The questionnaire opened about 4 months later, and then the list was established in June, so again, close to 6 months there. In 2017, the timeline was a little bit shorter. The test was given in October, skills questionnaire was about December, and then the list was established by March. So I've given a tentative timeline for 2022 that potentially the skills inventory questionnaire will open around June or July, with the list established around September, October, but I am not civil service, so I do not know. I'm also not a psychic, so I do not know. The best guess I have, though, would be the timeline that's showing on your screen right now. And I'll be going over the skills inventory questionnaire a little bit more and what the lists are as we go. So I'm going to be referring to the lists a lot in this, and when I say lists, I mean the eligible list management system on the civil service website. It's also called ELMS, and I'm going to show you how to get to that 2 different ways right now. The way I usually get to it is I just go to the main cs.ny.gov website and scroll all the way down to the bottom, and there is a list on the bottom there's a link on the bottom that says eligible list ELMS online, and if you click that link, it will bring you to the eligible list section. Or you can go to cs.ny.gov/ELMS public, all one word, ELMS public. That's the direct link to it as of right now. If you go to the list page, you'll see 2 different sections on it. The top section that says My List Information is for specifically your lists. Once you are on lists, you'll be able to see your contact information, your declinations, canvases, all of those things can be managed from the My List Information section. But you do not need a login, and you don't need to have a ny.gov ID. You don't need to be on a list to look at the bottom section there that says eligible lists. So I'll be talking a lot about different lists as we go through and how the lists work. When the test is scored and you get your score, there's a section here on the My List that you can see called Score Notices. And if you click on that, it will give you different list score notices. So this is a sample score notice. I blocked out a couple of things on it. Your name would be in the blue box that says name. The list number would be in the blue box that says list number, and the exam date would be in the blue box that says exam date. The list number is a good way to refer to the list, to make sure you're looking at the right one on the website once you want to check what's going on and see where you are. The final score and your rank, right in the middle of the page here, are how you're going to be able to be reached on the list or not. The final score matters more than your exact rank. For example, if you get a 95 at rank 19 and a 95 at rank 20 or 21, it doesn't really make a difference. The rank is just based on your actual raw scores before they round them to the 5-point increments. So you're going to see that the scores are in 5-point increments. They'll be at like 95, 90, 85, 80. But there is an exception. Sometimes you see like a 97.5. And that would be if somebody has some veterans credits. And I'll show you a little bit more about those in a minute as well. The different sections are listed at the bottom. And in this case, these are the same 4 sections that were on your exam. And it tells you how many questions you answered correctly out of each one of them. And there's the final column on the right tells you kind of your percentile. So if you see sections where 15 out of 15 questions were answered correctly, well, you did as well as everybody that took the test, right? Nobody did better than you. But in the flowcharts, for example, this was only 14 out of 15. So that means that you did as well or better than 81% of people, but that 19% of people were able to get all 15 out of 15 for this particular exam. Whatever the word is I'm looking for. Exam date for this particular time that they gave the exam. Now, these scores don't necessarily add up exactly to like 95%. So if you keep reading your score notice, you'll see that it says a little bit more about how they calculate the final scores. So it says the final scores don't represent the percentage of correctly answered questions. Scoring formulas are applied. So the sum of the numbers may not equal your final score. Basically, they curve the test a little. There's some magic that happens sometimes that will move around the scores a little bit. In this particular exam, it says a passing score was a 70 or higher. If you did not score a 70 on the exam, you actually don't get to be on the list at all. And then eligibility date would be if you don't have enough seniority in your title yet or something, you're not actually eligible to be promoted into this new title yet, there would be an eligibility date that shows when you would actually be eligible. If you happen to be a veteran, you can request veterans credits, and you would have requested them when you applied for the exam. And this being a promotion exam, you have to go to the very bottom of that veterans credit section, and it says basically that disabled war veterans are given 5 points and non-disabled war veterans are given 2.5 points. And this particular exam also had seniority credits, and those were explained on the exam announcement. I didn't pull that right now. Actually, I can pull it to look at right this second. To just confirm what the seniority credits are for you guys. So I'm just looking at the exam announcement and scrolling down to the bottom. It says credit for seniority. Seniority is credited at the rate of 1 credit for each 5-year period or fraction thereof, excluding the first year of service. So if you've only been in state service for 1 year, you don't get any credit. But if you've been in state service for 2 years, you should get 1 extra point. That is going to be put in before they band them to, like, banding is when they move them to the 5-point increments. So you won't see like a 96, you would see a 95 still. because it would maybe get you from a 94 to a 95 before they actually publish the final scores. So eligible lists. I know this was a question that someone had posted on the NYS ITS post that I had made asking what questions people had. Every exam can have its own rules, but usually this is the way it goes. So this is from your exam announcement. It says the certification of the eligible list. When you fill a vacancy, agencies have two options. One, to request general certification, which will go in order within a promotional unit, then within the department, then to other departments. So, for example, if you work for the controller's office, that is a department, and the promotional list would consider people that already work within the controller's office as a higher priority than people outside of that department. Or for the IT exams, there is the selective certification process. So if they determine that the hiring manager determines that you want specific education and experience, you have the option to request that selective certification of the eligible list. And I'll again go over selective certification in just a moment. So once you find a list, the list page on the civil service site looks a little bit like this. You'll see at the top that the list number you would want to make sure matches your score notice. Then there are filters where you can see either the entire list, you could see only people that have not yet been appointed, or you could see people that have been appointed. And then there's agency lists. So like I was just saying, the controller's office list, you can filter it down to just the controller's office people. I'll show you the list of all the department and promotion filters next here. The type is really important. It's about in the middle here of this slide, and it says next to statewide and then grade 23, it says type promotion. So in previous years, like if you look at the current IT specialist 3 list, this is actually the current list, is 37675. You'll see that there's a promotional list, but you'll see that there's also a open competitive list. This year, civil service did not do a promotional and open competitive, so you'll only see the promotional list once those come out. You'll see a start date for the list. And again, in this case, this one was start date as of 3/7/2018. And usually lists have an end date that's about 4 years out from the start date. So this one did previously have an end date of about 3/7/2022, but they extended it because of COVID, so it's 3/7/2026 right now. That doesn't mean that this list will stay good until 2026, though. Once a new list is established for the title, like once your scores come in, the old list will expire after 30 days. So they will change that end date once the new list comes out, and this list will expire. What that means for you is that if you don't get appointed off an IT Specialist 3 list, even though it hasn't expired, you do have to sign up for the exam again and take the exam again the next time it comes around, because otherwise you will not be on the list and not be eligible to be hired. So the Department and Promotion Unit filters. This is the current list on, again, the IT Specialist 3 list that I was just showing you. So you can see State Controller has its own basically internal list. Law has actually 2 different internal lists. So that's where it's the promotional unit and then the department. So it would be within the Albany and then within the law and then everybody. And you can see that there are other lists for the different areas. So whatever agency you're in, if you're signed in to the civil service website, it will tell you you are listed as working for the state controller, for example. So let's look at how to actually interpret the list once you see it. This is my sample eligible list. I have 10 different people on this list, and they've all got This would be the highest grades on the list. And the way that you determine whether you're eligible to hire somebody is based on what they call the rule of 3. So what I do is I look at my eligible list, I go to the top person on the list, and everybody that is still active, I count down 1, 2, 3 people. And in this case, I get down to Monet. And then once I'm down on that third person, anyone at that same score level is eligible to be hired. So in this case, if I want to hire somebody off of this list, the only people that are eligible right now would be Bo and Casey and Monet. When I have a person that declines a position, like maybe Bo never responds to the Canvas letters that I send out, or maybe Bo just says, yeah, I don't really want to work in that area. Well, I can cross that person basically off the list, and then I do the same thing. I count down 1, 2, 3 people. And now you can see that I've reached Harper, who's at a 95, and that means that anybody at the 95 level is actually eligible to be hired now, once I reach down into that band. So it's anybody at the score of the third person down that is still actively on the list. So it means that in this particular case, no matter how good of a candidate River or Ellis or Wesley or Jamie is, I cannot hire them under civil service rules normally. Now, there might be a selective certification, which happens very frequently at the grade 23 and above level in IT titles. So selective certification lets me, again, as a manager, say, I really need this one specific skill for this person that I'm going to hire. So I'm going to show you an example here in a second, but let's look at the process first. So the selective cert process means that your score does not change, but there is some sort of a required education or experience needed for this particular job. So, for example, because IT is such a wide field, even within like programming, maybe I'm hiring an upper level Java programmer, I would need to make sure that this person knows Java in order to be successful in the job and in order to do what I need. So I might say, okay, I need somebody with some Java experience. And then if you don't have the Java experience listed on your survey, you're not going to get any consideration for that particular position. The link that I have listed here on this slide is actually the link to the survey itself. It will not work for you to be able to look at the survey or take the survey until and unless you are contacted by civil service, which again, they will contact you probably a couple of months before the lists come out to say, hey, fill out your survey. So let's talk a little bit more about the survey itself. So the questionnaire, when you have it, it is optional, but highly recommended. Again, most positions at the grade 23 level and above are going to use some sort of a selective certification in my experience. So watch your email. The email that civil service has on file for you is where they're going to send this notice to say, hey, it's time for you to fill out your questionnaire. You should have at least a couple of weeks to fill it out once they send the email, but the deadlines are very set. So make sure you leave yourself enough time and make sure that you know your login, because you don't want to try to log in like at 10 p.m. the day that it's due by midnight and not be able to reset your password and then not be able to get in and get your selective cert done. So give yourself ample time to work on the questionnaire. I don't know if you remember doing the grade 18 questionnaires when you were starting at the state, but the grade 18 IT specialist questionnaires are actually somewhat similar to these ones, where it's large number of pages and items. The exam or the selective certification questionnaire from 2017, if I print it out, it's over 43 pages. It is 43 pages, and it does include hundreds of items. Now, whole swaths of those are not relevant to me as a IT specialist, right? I don't have experience in all these different fields, but especially the ones that I have experience in, I want to be very careful to make sure I get as much credit as I can for them. So if possible, print a copy of the questionnaire to go through thoroughly, or save it as a PDF and take your time marking it up on a tablet or something, or however you generally make sure you go through documents very carefully. I find that very helpful because when I'm scrolling through the web page for 40 some pages, it does get very boring. So if possible, print out a copy to go through thoroughly, and make sure that you give yourself as much credit as possible, but don't lie. So if you have credit in SQL, SQL, to work with databases, obviously give yourself credit for that. There's also probably a section that applies to you for experience with Oracle or experience with SQL Server. There's also probably a section that applies with PL SQL or T-SQL or something like that. So making sure to go through carefully and give yourself credit is really important. The thing is, if you do stretch the truth a bit too much on your questionnaire, managers who are pulling lists can and frequently will report you to civil service, and that can get you thrown off the list. I know that I had somebody when I was hiring at one point that said that they had experience in something that I needed, and when we brought them in for an interview, they could barely even spell the technology in question, and civil service was not very happy to hear about that. So just be honest, but give yourself as much credit as possible. So let's see how this looks with a sample eligible list. So in this case, I've gone with SQL experience, just because that's something that I usually look for when hiring for data warehouse stuff. So this would be an eligible list with SQL experience, and I'm pretending in this case that I'm looking for 2 or more years of SQL. So when you go through your survey, you're going to be able to choose between like this A, B, C, and D that you see here. It'll either be none, or you'll be able to choose A, 3 months to a year, B, 1 to 2 years, C, 2 to 5 years, D, 5 years or more. It'll probably be the same for your questionnaire when you do it. But when I look at this list as a hiring manager, when civil service gives me the list and I say I need 2 or more years of SQL, what they're going to do is they're going to basically cross off from the list anybody who does not have my 2 years of SQL. So then I can look at just the people that still have that, and I have my rule of 3 counter that I put down there again, 1, 2, and then 3. And you see I've got one person that has 100, one person that has a 95, and one person that has a 90. Now, these 3 people are eligible to be hired, and I would need to choose from one of those 3 if they were all interested in the job. If one of them declined, then again, I could reach down to Jamie and be able to offer them the job as well, potentially. But you can see that it doesn't matter that Jamie has 5 years of experience compared to River's 2 years, because all I said was I needed was at least 2 years. And as long as they meet the criteria, they're going to be eligible to be hired. Okay? So just make sure to, again, give yourself credit, but don't embellish too much. You might also see some people moving around from position to position based on transfers. And you might have heard of the 52-6, or they call it the 2-grade bump, 2-grade upgrade transfer. There's a lot more information about transfers on the civil service website. There's generally 2 different transfer sections of civil service law that are applicable to people. So 70.1 would be for very similar titles, but the one that we frequently hear is 52.6, which lets certain people bump and move around a little bit more easily. But they're both other ways that people can be hired. So, for example, once somebody is in a grade 23 position, they are frequently eligible to be hired for a grade 25 position, no matter where they are on a list or if they're on a list at all, because it's within 2 salary grades and they're eligible under Civil Service Law, Section 52.6. If you want to know more about transfers and about general availability for different things, different career paths in the state, a great website is the Career Mobility Office, also called Got It. And what this does is it lists the career paths. So it'll say, you know, IT specialist goes from IT assistant to IT specialist 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to manager 1 to manager 2. It'll kind of give you your career path, but it also lets you click and see where the positions are. So I just looked on this site yesterday, and as of yesterday, these are the numbers that I got. When I started at that job code 0815400 is actually the IT Specialist 3 job code. There are 756 positions in the state. And then under the programming parenthetic, there's another 613. Under Datacom, there's another 240. Database has another 180, and systems programming has another 137. So the Career Mobility Office website is a great place to look if you want to find more information about planning your career and different transfers you might be eligible for and different kind of paths that you might want to go down. But otherwise, I think that's about all I had to say about different things here on the civil service overview and your post-test stream. So watch out for that selective certification email to make sure that you don't miss a chance to fill out your survey, and look at the lists, maybe learn how some of these lists work. I intentionally did not put real lists up on the screen because some people, even though it's public information, some people don't like their scores being advertised or things like that. But again, you can feel free to go on that Elms Public and poke around to understand more about it. And I'm available if you have questions. You can feel free to email, or you can email civil service and ask them. They're also pretty helpful when you have a specific question. But otherwise, do you guys have any other questions for me? All right. Well, I hope you have a nice day, and that the wait for your test answers is not too long. Hey, Dan. I see that Dan just got in. We were very fast today, so I think we're going to wrap up. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me, sarah@nysits.org or sarah@tonertutoring.com, or or post a comment here on the video, and I will be happy to get answers back to you. And yeah, my best guess on the test result date for you guys is still like maybe September, maybe October. At the very beginning of the stream, there were a couple of little timeline slides that I went through. It usually takes a couple of months before they send out the selective cert, and then a couple of months after the selective cert questionnaires, they will send out the results. So you're definitely not going to get your test results before the selective certification questionnaires, because they don't like to release the lists until the selective certification is also in place. So they want that selective certification in place. All right. I think that we'll keep this a quick one then. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice day.